The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention define autism spectrum disorder, also known as autism, as a developmental disability that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. Have you ever wondered what causes autism? I'm sure the thought has crossed your mind once or twice. Well, the answer is, no one really knows. We know that it is some combination of genetics, biology, and environment, but there is no certain combination that will always result in autism or the lack thereof. We also know that it is not caused by vaccines or their ingredients. Having some friends on the autism spectrum, I have always wanted to educate people about how this disorder is really acquired. First, let's look at what people think is causing autism and why it's not true. According to the CDC, no links have been found between any vaccine ingredients and autism spectrum disorder. Many people believe that autism is linked with receiving vaccinations containing the ingredient thimerosal. The CDC defines thimerosal as a mercury-based preservative used to prevent contamination of multi-dose vials of vaccines. When the public began creating the link between thimerosal and autism, many studies were conducted to find out the truth. Is thimerosal to blame for autism? No. Carol J. Weber, author of Update on Autism and Childhood Vaccines, writes that in 1976, the FDA concluded that the low amount of mercury in vaccines was not likely to result in dangerous levels over a lifetime after conducting a review of products containing thimerosal. Although thimerosal was found to be safe in vaccines, it was removed from most childhood vaccines except for some flu shots in 2001. The removal of thimerosal was an attempt to limit childhood exposure to mercury. Now that we know what does not cause autism, let's talk about what does. The Autism Speaks website states that a combination of genetic, biologic, and environmental factors increases the risk that autism will develop. According to Autism Speaks, because autism tends to run in families, we know that it is partly determined by genetics. Although a parent can carry altered genes without showing signs of autism, they could pass those same genes to a child who could develop autism. Another possibility is that an embryo could spontaneously receive altered genes that may lead to autism. In any case, these genes simply increase the risk for autism. They do not guarantee that a child will or will not develop autism. There can be many differences in the brain biology of someone with autism. Some studies have shown that the brains of children with autism are bigger than the brains of children without it. There are also differences in the way their neurons communicate with each other. Some people with autism have neurons that communicate differently, while others have neurons that do not communicate at all. There have also been studies that concluded that the brains of people with autism have less connections between other areas than people without autism. There are some environmental factors that can increase or decrease the risk of development of autism. For example, the mother or father being older, pregnancy and or birth complications, and having children less than 1 year apart are all environmental factors that can increase the risk of having a child develop autism. On the other hand, taking the vitamin folic acid before and during pregnancy can decrease the risk of having the child develop autism as well as other complications. Lastly, let's talk about why vaccines are important. According to Fernando Stein, MD, and President of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and Karen Rimley, MD, Executive Vice President of the American Academy of Pediatrics, vaccines are safe, vaccines are effective, and vaccines save lives. The CDC website explains that when you get a vaccine, you are introducing dead or weak antigens that cause a certain disease to your cells so that it can build immunity to the disease if it encounters it in the future. In your body, there are cells whose job is to remember antigens. If the cells encounter these antigens that they have met before, the immune system will release antibodies to fight the antigens. Vaccines were created to prevent the transmission of certain diseases such as influenza, hepatitis B, and human papillomavirus, also known as HPV. Because of vaccines, many serious diseases have been eradicated. Those that have not been eradicated can be prevented by simply getting a vaccine. Now that you know all about vaccines and that they don't have a relationship with autism, let's summarize. Vaccines are created with the purpose of making a safe environment for people. However, some people believe that thimerosal, an ingredient in some flu vaccines, is causing children to develop autism. We know that that's not true because autism is caused by a combination of genetic, biologic, and environmental factors, not vaccines. Getting vaccinated is the only way to protect the vulnerable populations, such as children, the elderly, and the immunocompromised. In order to protect those people and yourself, please stay up to date on your vaccines.